Hi, this is the module Element Enhancements within DataMiner Fundamentals. In this module, we'll take a closer look at some further enhancements. So we took a look at the element real-time data, the performance data. Now we're going to take a look at the visuals we can add on top of that to make a nice graphical presentation of your elements, but we will also take a look when we combine elements together into views and services. So those visuals are also applicable to views and services. So we want to take a closer look also here what views actually have for us and what they bring to the table. Also services with adding that service perspective onto our DataMiner system. So first, the visuals. So let's take a look at the visuals. So as I said, visuals are applicable to elements, but also to views and services. So on all of those objects in a DataMiner system, we can add some graphical presentations. So these graphical presentations are made in Microsoft Visio, and we can make some nice, more geographical overviews, schematical overviews, just logical views, front panels. So any kind of graphical presentation can be created, which allows you to easily navigate around in your system, to have that bubble up perspective on which sites are in alarm. You can drill down into a site, see more details, drill down up to devices. I'll be using a little bit the Zine platform again for some demo purposes. So you can also access the Zine platform, as I mentioned already before. So on the root view, we can easily drill down into a certain continent. We can see different sites. We can go to a certain site, see a logical overview there, or a flow of how the signal goes there with some key parameters. We can drill down into that one of those specific devices here as well. See a front panel, see real-time data, controls to switch it on or off, or even change, for instance, here the audio output level to a new value. See some trend graphs in there. So all of that can be really added into these graphical overviews. So those graphical overviews really allow you to easily navigate around, find your way, drill down into the system up to device level. Once you're in a device level, you can of course switch to the data view as well, as we have seen our real-time data and performance data before. So it's a convenient way and intuitive way of navigating around. Where can we find it? Underneath the visuals, of course. So we have the data, which we have already looked at with our data pages there, and we have our visuals. So each card, if it's a view, an element, or a service, it will have the data and the view site or pages on there. Note that there is a possibility that there are multiple pages underneath there. Typically, if I go back to, for instance, just this one, open up the side panel, you can see there is nothing more than visual. Also, if I go to one of our devices we were before with our audio output level and things like that, the visual one doesn't have any subpages. So there's only one on those drawings, but there is a possibility, as indicated here in the slide, that, for instance, there are multiple pages. Like this one has an overview page and a task manager page, and the overview page even has two subpages, general and hardware. So that allows you to really add more information into different views on the same object. In this case, it's an element, but I do have an example here. Let me show you. If I go to our Europe view again, and I go to this one, I have a couple of services here. If I take TF1 here, and in this case, we do have 3 pages here on top. We don't have subpages, just 3 perspectives or views onto the same service. The east-west gives you east-west view from Los Angeles. We have the input here, the encoder going over the network. It's not active, so the network is not here. Going to the decoder in New York, going to the output here. So this is what we call east-west with some more information and parameters on there. We also have a north-south view where we can actually see in Los Angeles this encoder, on which compute blade is it, and on which chassis does it currently reside. Also on the New York side, you have the same thing. So note you can zoom in and zoom out to see more details and zoom in and out again. There's also a schedule view in this case, but it's not active. So you will see the resources on like a schedule view, but it's not active for the moment. So that's an example of different views, different perspectives on the same service in my demo, or here on the same element in the slides here. So really powerful. Be aware, some have pages, some don't have pages. Depends on the administrator creating those drawings, what he decided to create. Creating the drawings comes up later on in the configurator part. Here we're currently looking at what is already configured in the system and how to navigate around what we can expect in terms of features and capabilities here. So in terms of features, so here we have a couple of things indicated. So the names are indicated dynamically also for the satellite receivers here. The alarm state is being color-coded into the graphical presentation. There are some controls to simulate some alarm here on there. So that's a parameter set, but also a frequency or some key parameters can be indicated here. We also have some buttons here to force the signal to main or backup device. So it is possible as an operator, instead of executing a whole procedure and copying the frequency and things and other settings from the main device to the backup device, you just click on a button, the automation script is being executed, copies all the settings to the backup device, reroutes the signal all automatically. So that's an automation script running there behind those buttons. I can actually take a look at Roam. That's the Roam view. It's a little bit a different flavor here, but we have the satellite receivers coming in. So we see the frequency here, and I can actually simulate an alarm. And what happens if I simulate an alarm? It automatically reroutes the signal to the backup device, copying the frequency to the backup and things like that. So in this case, it automatically reroutes the signal as well. But you can see those dynamic drawings are dynamically changing and adapting to where the signal flows, etc. Another example here, this is in the London view. Let me show you in this example here. So it's the satellite receivers of a certain site 1 with a main and a backup. So we have a switch here in front, and then we have another switch going over IP to a second site where you have another main and backup again. With some key parameters on SLAs. We'll talk about SLAs later on. But in this case, we can actually simulate an alarm on the main device. It automatically reroutes the signal to a backup device. And in this case, if I also simulate an alarm on the backup device, it needs to do a site switchover. Yeah, site switchover is a little bit a special case because we want some kind of confirmation from an operator before doing that. If we do that, it will go and search for all the people that are online and throw them like a box, a pop-up like, do you want to attach to this procedure here? So if I simulate the alarm, what happens? Everybody who's online will get this user interaction request, and I will attach here. So I attach, and it says like, yeah, there's a signal problem detected in site 1. Do you want to check something and switch over to site 2? I can do some manual checks. And if I say, okay, do the switch over to site 2, only after a confirmation from the operator here, it will effectively switch over to the site 2, and it's successfully switched over. Oops. So now we're switched over to that backup site after a manual intervention. So this main backup is automatic. The site switchover is a manual confirmation that needs to be done in between there. So you can see buttons can be added on there to do switches. Dynamic behavior is being shown. Also in this case, we have a couple of baseball switches which are indicated here, and they can actually be rotated on the right-hand side. If I take a look at that one. We have in Paris here the possibility to go to door 22, for instance. And actually also nice is that this one also does some path highlighting. So if I see the red here, I can just click on there. You can see it highlights where it's coming from. So you can see this device is in alarm. So therefore the signal coming in, which is green, goes into red color all the way down. It's combined here. So actually I can rotate this one here. So if I toggle this one, I will put the red signal away and it's all green now going to the satellite. So this is a baseball switch. You can have some action buttons next to it, and it's rotating that behavior or that signal there. So that's a baseball switch. Also, some visuals, thumbnails can be added in there. We have two examples here in the slide. We have a spectrum, and I do have also that spectrum on that TOR22. So if I go back to Paris, I have that TOR22 with a small icon here with a spectrum. If I click on there, it shows in a small pop-up a live feed of this satellite frequency spectrum thumbnail here. So this kind of visual verification of the satellite feed coming in with a spectrum thumbnail could be very convenient, but even more popular probably is the video thumbnails. So here you see a main and backup video thumbnail being shown here. So this gives this confidence monitoring of like, okay, this video thumbnail is still coming in. This is a live updating video thumbnail, which is very popular and very often used in these kind of overviews. Other things can be added, like all kinds of bar charts, pie charts, stack charts. We do have some examples on the Microsoft server we have here, the Zine Microsoft server, for instance. We have some key parameters shown at the top here, but we also have the disk information. You can click on any of the parameters to see a small pop-up with that total processor load or handles or etc. So to verify those parameters quickly from within your visuals. Of course, you can always go to the data pages like we've done in the previous modules and go into the total processor load as well, of course. But from within the visuals, you also have the possibility to add bar graphs, pie charts, etc. A special item is the drag and drop capability. So here on the lower left-hand side, we have two devices. And if we drag one onto the top one, it's a details panel. So if we add drag and drops IRT 1 or 2 on there, it will show you the details of that device you dragged on there. Why could this be interesting? Well, if you have a map, for instance, with a lot of items on there, it's kind of hard to show for each element all of the key parameters there, because that could be like overloading your drawing way too much. Therefore, it could be convenient to have maybe one details panel. I can just take one of the sites, drag and drop them on there to see the details of that specific site. Another possibility would be to use the hover with your mouse. You move over with your mouse on one of the sites and it automatically updates. So it doesn't necessarily need to be drag and drop. Also, an automation script can be linked like that. So if you drag one of those two IRDs again onto an automation drop zone, it will execute that automation script. Could also be an intuitive way of executing an automation script on various devices of your choice. All right, some examples. I've already taken a look at that satellite Paris Earth Station view here. So that's in here as well. Rack overviews can be shown with some switches in there, etc. with front view, back view. The trend graphs that I've shown already on the Microsoft platform as an example. The east-west view that I've shown on a service, but this one is effectively active here with the network and some video thumbnails here. So you can see the video thumbnails on the different points in the network, which is quite convenient there. So that was a little bit on visuals. So as I mentioned, visuals are not only applicable for elements, but also for views. But we didn't really talk about views that much or not in depth. Well, we're not going to go too in depth, but I want to show a couple of more things there, because what is the data page for a view? So a view has a graphical presentation, but the data page, well, it actually just shows you everything which is underneath this, below this view. So it shows you all the elements, services, redundancy groups, whatever is in there. It shows you all of those items. So if I go to my system, and if I go all the way to the top and I go to Scene, and I go to not the graphical presentation, but the data below this view, I see basically everything in my system. So all of the items in my system. If I go to Rome view, for instance, then I see just everything which is in Rome. So it is a very convenient way to go into like, oh, I have Paris, all the Paris items. I have Rome, all the Rome items. I go to Brussels or whatever. So you can easily see everything underneath there. So, and it gives you a lot of details, so the name, the alarm state, and all the different columns like the IP address of the data source, the protocol is in there, the alarm template, the trend template. So it gives you a lot of columns, a lot of details where you can find more information about those items. Now, just to talk a little bit about the different icons, here we can first of all distinguish three different states of an element. So you have three elements here. The top element is active, the second element is paused, and the third element is stopped. So the active element means that DataMiner is having active communication with the data source. So it's actively retrieving all the data from that specific data source, from that element, from that service, from that cloud function. It's getting all the information from the API or the socket or whatever is available there as a remote API. That's active, that's what we expect. You could although pause an element. That means that we will pause the communication. We will no longer do polling of new data, but everything is still active in DataMiner. We still have the data display, we still have the last readings, the last CPU power or signal level or whatever is still available there, because we're just pausing it for a short period of time. Typically pausing is a short period of time. Let's say you need to do a quick restart of the element, or you need to replace some cabling or something, and you don't want to do any kind of timeout alarms or anything like that. You can pause it, do your work, and then activate it again and verify that everything is still working fine. Or you can also stop an element. Stopping an element means that it really tears everything down in DataMiner. It stops everything, takes everything out of memory. You can no longer see the last readings anymore. We really completely remove it. It doesn't consume any memory or CPU power or whatever. It's really nothing is left except for the configuration, the name, and the settings on that element. There's nothing readily available anymore. So if you activate a stopped element, it will take maybe a second to start it up again, and then it will start polling, maybe a second, 2 seconds. If you take a paused element and you activate it again, it's instantaneously that it will start polling again. So pausing for a short period of time, stopping, you do it for a longer period of time. Maybe you need to ship something back to the vendor, then you stop your element for maybe a week or so. Or you don't need it anymore for a week, then you can stop your element for a week and activate it again next week. All right, so those are the three states that we have. In the right-click menu, you can activate, pause, or stop an element. What else do we have? Of course, the color coding is indicated. So the alarm color coding is added. So the most severe alarm state of your element is shown in there. So we have the normal, warning, minor, major, and critical as we have in the alarm console as well. If you want to know the alarm states, I always take a look at the alarm console at the bottom there in your alarm console. So we have starting, normal is green, of course, and then we have the warning blue, dark blue. Then we have the minor, which is like cyan blue, and then we have major, which is the yellow, and we have critical, which is the red, of course. You can change the colors as I've mentioned before. There's one special color indicated here, purple. That's masking. When you suppress the alarms, then we indicate the element with a purple icon with a purple color. Purple is masking. That's something we will discuss in the alarms module, which is coming up later. Okay, special icons that we see in this screenshots are the following. The first one here is the redundancy group. Basically what we see in the icon, we have like two main devices, you could say, with one backup device in front of it. So we can create a redundancy group where we have a main and a backup with two main devices and one backup. That's a redundancy group, and any M+N redundancy group we can create in DataMiner. We're going to talk about that later in the configurator module. So redundancy groups can do some redundancy switching in DataMiner or simulate or show the current status of a redundancy group if you have hardware redundancy. The SLA, the service icon here, the service icon is like two elements icons with some lines there, so they are connected, so they have like, it's more like a service chain. You have multiple elements that are responsible to deliver a certain service to your customer. So in this case we have the Olympics of Air here, so which is several elements combined together into a service. So that's adding that service perspective to your system. I'll come back to that in just a minute. And the final one is the SLA icon. The SLA icon, that's like the service icon, but it has a couple of lines there on the upper left-hand side. That's a contract which is associated to a service. A contract, an SLA, a service level agreement. It's an agreement, a contract, so linked to a service that is indicated in the icon there. Okay, so those are the three icons that are a little bit more special next to the regular elements. Okay, so we can also do some searching in there as well. So whenever you do some searching on the upper right hand side, you will have the blue background color coding. Let's play around with that. So we have the Rome here. So if we're looking for some 01 device, you can just type in 01 and it will start a search. Oh, 01 is being found in the other columns as well. So let's go for BU, the backup device, so we can easily find the backup device in there as well. So it will of course look in any column. So BU is also found because this one is operational. If I go, for instance, to the root view, there you will have lots and lots of elements. There it could also be interesting to filter, for instance, on the type of device. So if you're looking for a Cisco, so here we can look and search for Cisco. It gives you some suggestions. Cisco Manager, for instance. So all of the Cisco managers, not the Cisco CMTS, but the Cisco managers are being shown here. And I can quickly go to one of our switches here. So again, this switch has a nice visual as well, where we can see all the different ports. I can select one of those ports, and the selected port is then shown up here and with the trend graph. So whenever I select one of those, it shows the details at the bottom. That's drilling down into that sidetrack here, drilling down into that Cisco. But that filter allows you to easily filter on any of the columns. So also remember that protocol can be convenient to filter on. Next to that, we do have at the bottom right hand side, we do have some type filtering. Let's take a closer look at that, and maybe I need to move it a little bit up front here so that it's above my picture there. So we have a couple of items there. Well, next to the list item, you also have this kind of bigger list with some others filtering on there. You can play around with those. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. But first thing, what I want to mention is on the filtering, you will see that it has a number of filtering on elements, services, redundancy groups, etc. Well, first of all, before I go in depth on that filtering, if you open up your side panel, you will see that below this view, I'm currently on the root view, so it's in the whole view. I could also go, for instance, for Europe. If I go into Europe, let's do it like that. I'm in Europe. I have within Europe a number of elements or a number of objects. More specifically, I have 200. But I can see that all of them are 200, but actually I can see that 192 are elements, and I also have 3 services. And I have 4 SLAs, and I have 1 redundancy group. So opening up that item allows you to really go not having a mixed view with everything underneath combined together, but you can also really make this like a service view. And you can really go into a specific site or go to your root and have just a list of all the services. And if I now go to the filter view, it will only give me the service items in there. If I go to the SLA, it will only give me, or no SLA filtering possible. Redundancy groups has a couple of. So the all items, well, there you also have the possibility to kick out SLAs or kick out services or kick out the other ones. Now I only have elements, and then I can, for instance, take a look like, okay, remove everything and which elements are stopped. So the stopped elements can be investigated. I have no paused elements or all the other elements. So you can really do any kind of filtering there on the type or the SLAs. Now I'm just activating everything again. So you have a quick filter here to go to services. You have some more possible filters to items to filter on in this type filter as well. Okay, so think about that filter and think about that panel that you can open up to filter also a little bit as well. So in the screenshot, they were removing the stopped and the paused elements. So you can see that there are some elements which are paused and stopped. They are no longer being shown here when you are filtering out those items. Okay. A quick look at the right-click menu. I think most of it has already been covered in some shape or form, or some things are for later on. So let's take a look at it inside our Roam view, for instance, and go for all. So if I right-click on an element, we've already seen how to open cards, new cards next to each other, or undocked card. That state, so I have my Roam here. I can, for instance, change the state to pause. I now have the pause icon. If I activate it again, it will immediately activate. If I would stop it, then I completely destruct everything from memory. And if I would activate it again, took a little bit like half a second maybe, because this is a lightweight protocol, so it goes very fast. Bigger protocols might take maybe a second, maybe 2 seconds. And then they are starting up and having everything available again. So that's the states, active, paused, stopped. Masking, we're going to talk about masking in the next module on alarms. Multiple sets, I'll immediately come back to that one. Alarm template, trend templates is a little bit more advanced as well as the other things, but you can already take a look at the viewing the alarm template, for instance. We'll talk about that later on. Editing, deleting, duplicating, creating new items, that's all more for the configurator part. So all of those things will come back later. And properties, we've taken a look at that already within the surveyor module. So let's take a look at that multiple set. So that multiple set allows you to do a multiple set across different elements. Remember that we did a multiple set inside our Philips device, where we changed the audio output level, the left frequency, audio mode, whatever kind of couple of parameters. We changed all the values, then clicked go, and we send like a salvo towards the device to configure everything. Now, well, actually, if we want to do a setting on a bunch of elements, and we all want to align all of my elements in the field on a specific new value, I can do that across elements with the multiple set available in the right-click menu. So you right-click on one of your elements that you want to manipulate, and you go for multiple sets. And this pop-up window will appear, and it will automatically select that specific protocol, that specific version. Production version is fine. We should always just use production version. I'll talk about versioning later on in the configurator. And then we can select a parameter and choose a new value to apply it on a number of elements. Well, let's do that. Let's go through that step by step in a demo. So I'm here in my Roam view. I have a number of Philips devices, so I can move to the right to see in the protocol column that indeed those are Philips DVS3810 elements. So if I right click on one of those Philips devices and go for multiple set, well, that window will automatically select the Philips DVS3810 production version. But I could also go, for instance, for a Cisco and go for a Cisco manager and start changing things on there. So you can just right click on any of the elements and it will automatically select the correct protocol, or you can still change the protocol or connector afterwards. I actually want to change something on this on these Philips devices. So let's take a look at that, how that works. So it's a... Oh, I was moving my scroll wheel there. Oh. So let's go back to Philips DVS3810, the production version. So I have all my elements on the right-hand side. I can make this a little bit bigger as well. And as soon as I will select a parameter, I'll take our audio output level. Remember the audio output level. It will immediately load all the audio output levels from my system. So let me just move this a little bit to the sides. And let's just open one of our IRDs in a new card so that we can see our audio page. So remember our audio output level. We were playing around with it. So for IRD02, in Roam, it is currently 9. Let's verify if that is correct. So in, where are we? Here, Roam. So the Roam IRD2 is indeed 9 dBm. And if I would change it on here to something like 12, yes, I want to change it. You can see it's updating here to 12 as well. So this is real-time updating. So this is nice that this is a real-time updating interface as well. So what I can do now is I will select IRD 1, 2, and 3, a couple of them, and I want to give them a new value. And for instance, let's go back to 9. So if I will press on the set button, you will see that it will effectively go and change back to 9 on the element which is open. But since I selected 3 of my IRDs, or maybe I can also select the backup, all 4 of them now, all the ones that are on 6 will also change to 9 in one go. So if I click set, they are all now on 9. Let's go to 12 again. So now all of them are on 12. So let's go to 15, for instance, 15. Now all of them are on 15. So that's how you can easily do a salvo, you could say, on multiple elements across your system with a multiple set. So remember, just also from the surveyor, you can also just right click from there, go multiple set. You select the different devices you want, or elements you want to do that set on. You select your parameter and your new value, and you have your multiple set. Okay, so that was what I wanted to tell you a little bit more about the views. Let's now dive into services. So we've seen that we can combine different elements into a view, like we have the London view, the Rome view, and we have that whole hierarchical structure. But now, what is a service? A service is basically also a combination of elements, you could say. Yes, it is, but it gives you a little bit more. So it gives you that service card, and it gives you that service perspective onto your system, also in your alarm console. Let's take a closer look at that. So in here we have the London view, and we have a BBC One service. So this is the service icon, and I can also open it up. I can see which elements are in there and which are responsible for delivering my BBC One throughout my system. So typically it's a whole chain of elements that are responsible for the BBC. And if I open that up, so I have my service card open here, it gives you easily a nice view view on all the elements that are in there, and I can easily just go to one and the other pages from one element to another element. I have everything combined in here. But what is nice, if something goes into alarm, I can immediately see if my element goes into alarm that there is a certain impact here. There is a service impact 1. One service is being impacted by this element alarm. And I can see that the service name is BBC1. So when I see the alarms popping up in my system, I not only see on which elements they are happening, but I also can see which services they are impacting that I deliver to my customer. So it adds that additional information into my system that I'm not only seeing the element device layer kind of alarms, but I can also see the impact on the services that I'm delivering to my customer. So to take a look at that, first of all, before we move to that next one, we do have here in the London view a service, Olympics of Air. So if I open up that Olympics of Air, you can see actually that there are a number of elements in there. So I have a site 1 and 2 main backup kind of thing. Note that we have been playing around with that one. So let me just put it a little bit again in a normal default state. So now you will see site 1 main is active. So the other ones are a little bit grayed out. Indeed, site 1 is active. If I switch over to the backup, you can see that now site 1 backup is active. So if I switch over, I can immediately see the impact here, and I can immediately see that reflected in the surveyor tree structure. Also on the graphical presentation, of course, I can see that. But also if I go to the contents, the data of my service, I can see the devices here, and I can see that the other ones are currently not in use, and this site 1 main is currently in use. So I immediately see within the service context here, which devices are currently active. I don't need to verify which switch is going where currently. I don't have to follow any signals or IP flows. I can just open up that service, and I can see, and DataMiner indicates to me, oh, it's this one doing the job now. So if I want to do some configuration, open it up, start manipulating any of the parameters here. I'm currently working on the active device. And if I would go and switch over to the backup device, and I go in here, now we can see that the backup device is active and is doing the job. So that immediately gives you that nice view on there. Note next to the devices with an enhanced service, it's also a possibility to have some more service parameters on there, but we'll talk more about that in the services when we are creating one. Now, that extra layer actually gives you a very nice service layer on top of your system, because if we are considering here 2 scenarios, scenario 1 on top and scenario 2 on below that. Well, if we just take a look at the device or element layer, from a user perspective, I have one of my elements into alarm here, a critical alarm, just one of the many elements that I have. In the second scenario, it seems to be just exactly the same thing. I have one of my elements going into alarm. So it's difficult to make a priority here on which one I should focus on first. But if I added that service layer on top of my system, I will immediately see that this element actually only impacts one service, while the other element is used in like a dozen of services. So here we have a much bigger impact on the services that I'm delivering to my customer. So here I will probably have a higher priority on fixing this one before I take the time to take this one, because the impact on the services that I'm delivering through my environment are a lot bigger. So that service impact is indicated in the alarm console. So here we have two elements, both in a critical state. So we have two alarms in our alarm console. So it seems to be like perfectly equal in terms of priority. Until I come to my service impact column, then I can see the top one, only one service impact, then the other one, 5 services. Yeah, but I also need to take into account which services. So therefore, we also have the services enumeration there. The one service here is BBC1. The other one is a whole series of them. 5 services are impacted here. So I can take a look at this. I can now see what the actual impact is instead of seeing like IRD 36 backup underscore whatever is into alarm. I can really see the impact on my services that I'm delivering. So that's the valuable layer of services that you can add on top of your elements. That's very convenient, very adding a lot of value to your system. Well, one last remark that I want to add onto those services. I was just mentioning a number of elements are being added into a service. Well, be aware it is possible to add only a small part of an element in there. So like this one only has the video page with only 2 parameters on there. But if I open up the London IRD 1, you can actually see next to other pages, this video page has typically more parameters. So you can really take only the parameters that are interesting for this specific service. So for instance, if I have a switch, I could say like only the parameters of one interface are important for this service here. And another thing I can do is I can also put services inside services. So it is possible to have sub-services and reuse services inside each other. So just for you to be aware that then you will see some services in a service like this one. All right, so that was a little bit more information about enhancing your system, the element enhancements as this module was called. So it's about visuals on your elements, but also on views and services. And then we took a closer look at those views and those services. So the services combining those elements in a nice hierarchical view to find your way around and to easily have a list of all the elements in a certain site or a certain view. And those services adding that service perspective onto your system and onto your alarms really gives you that added value to see the real impact of the alarms happening in your system. I hope you enjoyed this module, and up to the next one, I would say see you in the next.